All right, man. Well, thanks for joining me tonight. I'm interested to get an absolute masterclass on sprint car racing. So I want to know all the ins and outs. I want a brain dump from you, basically. But I want to know a little bit more about you because I've find people with, I don't want to call it an odd job, but let's be honest, USAC didn't exactly have a booth during career day at school, right? So I'm always interested on how people get to where they are now. So kind of walk me through from when you decided to want to become a race car driver until you actually got into the race car, basically a 410 Sprint.
Okay.
So walk me through that.
Okay. So, as we're growing up, so my dad's built race cars for 40 years now. So he's always been in the racing thing. So I was always around it. I was at the drag strip when I was 1 year old, like with the headphones on. So I've been around racing my whole life, just the drag racing side of it kind of deal. And then as I grew up, we had dirt bikes and quads, and we had moved from Orange County when I was 5 to a nice piece of land up here in the high desert. So we had dirt bikes, quads riding on the weekends. Then we got racing those. And then my little brothers actually crashed on quads. And my mom's like, that's it, man. They need cages. So that was like no quads, no dirt bikes after that. Just kind of hung out, rode bikes a lot. And then I turned 9 years old and my dad got me a trophy cart. Just me, because I was old enough. And so we started racing those heavily. Won the Junior 1 championship in 2008. And then 2009 ran third in the championship in the Junior 2. And then I broke my femur going into 8th grade year. So I don't know how old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So kind of took a break from the racing thing. My brothers did too. That's when the economy took a dive, and my dad lost his biggest customer, you could say. They moved all their stuff to Indiana, and hindsight 2020, now that we had raced sprint cars, like we wish we would have moved to Indy to race, because we could race sprint cars like every day of the week, basically.
Right.
But so he stayed here, kind of had to reinvent the wheel as far as his business deal. And then we kind of went racing trophy carts slightly, just me. And then actually up here in the high desert, there's a track called Wheel to Wheel. And I raced the full season of the pro, 500, speedway sprints is what they're called. So it's a speedway bike motor on the side of a mini, super, super small sprint car. It's more like a go-kart kind of deal. No suspension.
Right.
So I did that for a year, and then I got right into a sprint car, 360 sprint car. I had never been around dirt tracks until then. My cousin had done it a little bit. And looking back now, looking at his notes and stuff, man, we did not give that guy a fair chance. So I feel bad, but as we've learned, and I raced a lot, and I didn't race a lot, not as much as I would have liked to, but 10, 12 times a year was a lot for us kind of thing, because the sprint car deal is more, it was more expensive kind of deal. And then I raced the mini sprints, and then I ran the Young Gun season, the first season they had it at Paris. I bounced between, I had a ride, and then we were building chassis at that point. So we built me a chassis, and then we put that guy's motor, the ride's motor, in my car. Ran a couple races, ran pretty good. And then we ran a different series up here. It was URA, and they ran at Victorville, when that was still going. So it was 25 minutes from the house. It was kind of cool. So that was cool. Ran a couple races there. I actually blew up, because in the Young Guns thing, they allowed you to run 360s or a restricted 410. So we got me a restricted 410 because it was a little more power. Even being restricted and stuff, it wasn't that close. So we had a test day, and I had run it a couple times in races, and we were kind of trying to figure me out a little bit, the setup, and it blew up. And so the guy's like, look, dude, I'm done. That's all I can do. I can't do that. So at the end of 2013, we ran ovals with my own personal car, or the house car, shop car. And then 2014 went back, won the championship for the Young Guns deal at Paris, and then ran a couple shows at Ventura, got my feet wet, with more experienced dudes. Because the Young Guns thing was all about getting kids, or not kids, but new guys, under 25, some experience, because we couldn't go out and get run over by the 410 dudes. Like that was when everybody
Right.
was a hitter. So, I mean, everybody's still a hitter now, but the speed's more, it's slowed down for me now. It's like I grew older and grew
Right.
faster, but back then I'm watching those guys like, no way I'm going that fast. Like those guys are going fast. So,
Right.
yeah, so that's how I kind of got into it. Originally, my dad had, because he was a drag racer his whole life in 2000, and like 99 and 2000, he had gotten himself a lightning sprint and then did a couple races with that, and it wasn't fast enough. So he'd gotten himself a 360, like a used deal, got a couple nights in it, a couple test sessions. And then he's like, this is, I'm going to put a brand new car together and like try to do something like run a full gear. And the first night out on a new car at Paris, they were running a Bandit 360 series, I believe. And backed it in, like leading the heat race, like lap one, leading the heat race, backed it in 3 and no wheel speed. Just, he was like, I was going a little fast and I backed it in extra hard because I was excited, and it hooked the right rear and sent him flipping. So he broke his back, broke his collarbone, tried to detach his left eye. His eye was shut for like 4 or 5 weeks. He was in the hospital for 2 weeks. So my mom, for the longest time, tried to not get us to go. I mean, we wouldn't even go watch.
Right.
Nothing. So it was kind of came full circle. My mom still didn't like it that I was racing the sprint car just because they're dangerous. But,
Right.
the safety equipment back then was not where it is today. No head and neck. I mean, he had like a donut, and I think he had like the one around his shoulder to hook to the left side. But I mean, I mean, that saved his neck, but you can't save your back. They have like a new thing out. You could try to now, but you couldn't save your back. Your collarbones, you're trying to leave the car and you can't keep your eyes shut when you're knocked out. So yeah, we with her, my dad had done it. And so it was cool for him to get back to do it. And with me and my cousin originally. And then, but yeah, so never really planned on racing sprint cars. I always wanted to do because we raced trophy cars, I always wanted to do like the Pro 2 and all the short course stuff, but that was just so far out of the budget kind of thing. Just to go race those deals, it was almost like to race a trophy car one weekend. It was double the money to go race a sprint car one night. So, and then so you can imagine the step up to go run the pro classes and stuff was astronomical at that level. So yeah, so I like the sprint car stuff's cool. You could come home, at night. Because we didn't really travel that much. Ventura or Santa Maria or Paris was really all I had gone to until like the last couple of years. Just try to stay local, have fun. Because my dad, I have 2 other brothers, and so they race too. So they're into the drag racing deal, and I like to help them, and they like to help me. So I couldn't race a full season, even if I had wanted to. Physically, it couldn't be possible, just because everyone has to get the fair treatment and all that. So, so yeah, really nothing too crazy. I just grew up in it. There was nothing like, oh man, I want to do that kind of thing. It was just kind of felt like, not really fell in my lap, but we just had been around it, and I love it. Like the sprint car deal is so exciting to me. How the cars work, and I'm into all of it. So I didn't just show up and drive. I prepped my whole thing, set it all up. Me and my brother Jake got it pretty close. These last couple shows that we had done, we felt like we were onto something. So we kind of didn't get cut short. It was just perfect timing to sell it all and kind of regroup. And then I want to do it still. So, I put my feelers out for rides, but I'm not I wasn't a super top level guy. I'm a top 10 dude for sure. So yeah, it's just, I love to drive them. I just don't want to own one no more. I just can't, I can't do it. So, yeah.
So as a photographer, because I just started, basically doing motorsports, just last year, and my followers and stuff were very curious as to what exactly is a sprint car. So I'm going to go ahead and share one of my awesome. Wonder who that is. Wonder who took that photo.
Yeah, that's a good photo, dude.
But this is you at Bakersfield. Yeah. And that was the GoPro. That was the first time I ever put a GoPro on anybody's car. And of course, the first time you got out, you went out track. Of course, we broke it. So
yeah, I probably should have
did
won.
Get some. Actually, we did. Right. So it was definitely a learning experience for everybody when it came to mounting the GoPro. And actually, you had a pretty interesting night that night. So, but yeah, so just kind of walk me through like what exactly is a sprint car?
Yeah, dude, a sprint car is basically the bare minimum you could have on a race car. A non-wing sprint car is basically bare minimum. You have a cage around you, which is the chassis. Low protection of the bare minimum. I mean, it's really not a lot of tubing. Live front axle, live rear axle, no transmission. It's in and out gearbox on the rear end. All the rear end runs, or not the rear end, the drive shaft runs between your legs, inside a torque tube. It's really not there's really not a lot there, and it's I think it's the most difficult car to understand as far as, because it's so simple, but you can dial yourself out so
Right.
fast. But yeah, I mean, it's all torsion bars is like the springs, and then the shocks are just dampeners basically, to control the
Mm-hmm.
rebound and compression a little bit. But the spring rate is just how the car rides around kind of deal. This old school
Mm-hmm.
style, Pitman arm steering. It's all off the left side. My car there only
Right.
has short Nerf bars, and most guys run the big ones. Um,
Right.
I'm a heavier dude, so we were trying to go for lightweight. I should have just put the big ones on. That was kind of a mistake. But nothing really. It's V8 on methanol. I mean, it's there. You lose 3% to the tires. Everybody off of the dyno versus like the wheel dyno. They have wheel dynos now for the dyno sprint cars, and you lose about
Mm-hmm.
3-4% at the tire. So, I mean,
Oh, so very little parasitic loss.
yeah, very
Very little.
very minimal. Yeah, it's an animal, dude. I mean, there's when they're properly tuned up. I mean, it's a it's a monster. I mean, it basically that's like the closest thing you're going to get to like a dirt bike, as far as like it's
Right.
so bare minimum, and you're like that's man and machine. Like there's really not much there.
Right.
Um, it's you, a steering wheel, and two different pedals. I mean, the gas and the brake. There's nothing crazy.
Right.
I mean, we had all. Everybody has the rebound adjustable or compression adjustable knobs in the car, just for
Mm-hmm.
extra stuff, but nothing really. It's a real simple machine as far as
Right.
race cars go. I mean, even drag racing cars may have so many sensors, and even my brother's got like a
Right.
bare minimum like nitrous car, and it still has more stuff on it than a sprint car. But we're
Right.
squeezing everything about it. But a sprint car, I mean, you'll never get all of the power to the ground, non-wing as far as just because they're constantly spinning, but you're constantly trying to
Right.
put forward bite in it, and yeah, they're super cool, dude. I mean, these people like when we had gone like after I had been racing them for a while, like we'd go to like the March meet and stuff and meet and see customers, and they're like, "You drive the sprint car?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "How do you do that?" I'm like, "That's such a wild thing," and it's not. To me, it wasn't because I had done it already. But they're like drag racers. They're going 250 in the quarter in a Nitro Nostalgia Funny car, and they're like, "Dude, like you're super cool, bro. Like that's super cool. You could get to do that." I'm like, "I don't want to go 250 on the asphalt,
Right.
dude." But
Right.
so yeah, a lot of respect. I mean, even to go around the track good in one of these cars. I mean, I respect everybody that does that just to have the courage to get in one,
Right.
because they do sting when when you get upside down. So yeah,
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, how, simple they are. I mean, no starters, so you have to be push
yep,
started. Um, you guys run off of magnetos, so no batteries.
yeah,
Um, your gauges, you have oil pressure and water temp, and that's pretty much it.
yeah. Oil pressure,
Do
water
you guys
temp.
even run a tack?
I run a tack. Yeah, most everybody runs tack, so you can kind of
Okay.
figure out the gearing. The tack shows you
Right.
like their four most common low RPMs, and then the four most common highs, like
Mhm.
when you're on the hammer kind of deal. So that kind of gets you close to get you
Right.
gearing. But yeah, not much. I mean, oil pressure is just mechanical, and so is water temp. Some guys run like the super cool digital ones, and you have like a little 9 volt in them. But
Right.
yeah, not a lot of stuff. I mean, my last car had a crank trigger, so I had one extra switch so I could run the motor on the mag, which was retarded timing a little bit, and then the trigger it's on kill.
Mhm.
So yeah, I made makes lots of power, lots of fun. I really didn't run I mean, I ran the trigger at the beginning of the night qualifying and maybe the heat race, but when the main
Mhm.
comes, it's all slick. So you put it back on the mag, make a little
Right.
less power kind of deal. And but it was a lot of fun. I mean, to drive that car is wild. I know it's hard to explain for all of the, to people that don't understand, but you have to just watch it kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you guys mostly, race on dirt. I mean, obviously, in some parts of the country, there are asphalt cars, but primarily you're going to see sprint cars racing on dirt. Tracks, like track lengths, typically what size tracks do you guys race on?
We're usually on anywhere from quarter to half mile. I mean, I know back east they run like big half miles. I mean, they say Paris a half mile,
Right.
but it's more of just a paperclip kind of thing. But yeah,
Right.
half mile. The half mile. There's a lot of them out here. I mean, not a lot. Arizona has a couple. Cocopah, and that's a big joint, and then Casa Grande is a big joint. Paris, and then a lot of small stuff up north. They had a Calistoga way up north, but that had gotten. I think that shut down now. Kind of deal. But yeah, lots of small stuff like closer to the north. Even the wing car, they go around a small track good, but I don't know. I like the big stuff just because I had a bigger motor. So
right, exactly. And in terms of sprint cars, obviously there's, depending on what part of the country, there's a whole bunch of different spec series and different regional stuff. But I've always view that there's like 4 kind of main classes. So you have your wing cars, so like your World of Outlaws, so you have 410s and 360, and then you have your non-wing 410 and 360. So those are kind of like the main 4. 360, 410, when we say that, it's engine size,
cubic inches. Yes.
So for our cubic inches. So for our foreign friends, a 360 is 5.9 liters, and a 410 is 6.7 liters, if my math is correct, roughly around that point.
I think so.
They're still considered small blocks. They still small blocks for the 410.
Yep, small block Chevy. Yep. So the 360 is based on is more of like a spec. No, they say spec class. It's the blocks are stock, like not stock, but Chevy steel blocks, so a little heavier. I think this season a couple of them, the national touring ones, are allowed to run aluminum or something. But yeah, it's basically it's been in the past. It's been steel blocks. They ran ASCS heads or open heads, and then they restrict them based on like what kind of head you have. And then the 410 deal is like it's 410 cubic inches, whatever head you want to run. It's down nozzles on the side of the head. The 360s are up. You have to be injected on the top of in the intake, or not the intake runners. But yeah, all pretty close. I mean these, like that's a elite car right there. So that's a wing 410.
So wing cars, when we say a wing 410, basically you have a giant wing on the top and on the front, massive amounts of downforce. So one thing that I've noticed with the differences between the two is, when I go to see an outlaw event, the driver, you never hear them lift. They're pretty much flat out. Maybe they might breathe the throttle a little bit going into the turn, but for the most part, that's, hammered down all the way around. And they're shockingly fast to the point where it's almost scary. Right. But also one thing I didn't quite realize until recently is, those wings. So you mentioned, the cars will sting you. That wing kind of acts as a cushion. So if you go upside down, you have some material to kind of, break your fall, so to speak, if you end up upside down. But for the most part, these are scary fast.
Yeah.
Scary fast. And between the wing cars and the non-wing, outside of the wings, are there really any other differences between the two? Is it pretty much, just the wings and that's it?
These guys, I think the wing guys run a shorter front axle. It's like 50 inches center line to center line of the kingpin. And then non-wing guys, 52 or 53, just because it's just different. So they like to get it to turn because the wing car, the wing is so laid left. They have tons of left rear drive. And they're wicked fast. Like, you're not lying. Like, I think the record at Paris is like low 12s with a wing car. And then the record at Paris for a non-wing 410 is 15.8. And that hasn't been touched since 2012. I think this past year, we went like 16 flat or 16.1, I think was the quick time at one of the shows. And That's ridiculously. I mean, I think the same night, I think we went like 16 something. Someone went 16-4,
Mm,
16-3, and I think that the top qualifier for the Outlaws was deep in the
right.
12s. I mean, they're so fast. So the
Right.
cushion is there, but they're going way faster than we are. So, I don't know how much of a
Right.
cushion it really is because they're just going so much
That's a fair
faster.
point.
But yeah, there is something
That's a
there.
fair point.
There's something there. But yeah, there's
Right.
not a bunch of difference. I mean, they run different offset wheels and stuff, just like the
Mm,
non-wing guys, front and rear. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just the shock package, just because they have, it's a different kind of setup to run those cars.
right.
And then the front axle thing, I think it's
Right.
all the same rear end stuff. I mean, obviously they're all like that guy is running all tie. Everything's lightweight in the rear end. So
Right.
yeah, you can get crazy with those deals, but the
Right.
local dudes around here, I mean, I ran just normal stuff because it all
Right.
bends the same.
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Right. So with these cars you mentioned before, they run on methanol.
Mm-hmm.
Um, methanol is a alcohol based fuel, probably closer to rubbing alcohol versus drinking alcohol. So I wouldn't recommend taking a shot of it. I guess probably you can, but I wouldn't do it. So why, other than historical reasons, right? Because sprint car has been running methanol since 60s, 50s. I mean, way back when. Why methanol versus traditional racing gas? Do you think?
I just the cool. It's cooler kind of thing. Like you don't have to run a fan on the radiator, um,
Mm,
so it just runs cooler and then makes more power. It's a lot of octane versus a leaded based fuel basically. I mean, you can make
right.
power, but it's just not as for endurance purposes. It's not as safe kind of thing because as you get hotter and hotter, it'll detonate more. So the methanol's pretty flat across the board as far as running time. I mean, you get the motors hot, but
Okay.
it keeps the engines cooler. I mean, we run 30 laps wide open, and the engine will be 220 or
Mm.
maybe 230 if you had a little, had a little hot, like a little hopped
Oh
up kind of
wow.
thing. But yeah, it doesn't hurt much. So it's all just
Right.
depends. I mean, that I think it's just a historical thing, honestly. I mean, but it makes more power. I mean, it's just and the only thing that's bad
Right.
about it is if you get fire, you get caught on fire. I mean, it's very hard to see
Right.
when you're close to it, kind of thing.
Right.
So you can only put it out with water. I mean, not only, but it goes out the best with water. The fire extinguishers kind of
Mm.
push it around, kind of thing. I mean, a couple of people have seen that kind of thing. Just if you watch any of I think that
Right.
one kid up north got burnt last year. Had a fuel line come
Mm-hmm.
off, and yeah, like that's a scary deal. I mean, so I think now there's
Right.
a fire suppression deal. I mean, I just mounted one on a friend of mine's car. He's got to run the West Coast deal out here, West Coast 360, and I put one on his car. He's like, yeah, dude, I want that deal. So it wasn't like astronomical price. I think it was like $500 or something, and it was easy to mount and
Mm.
easy to run the cable. And then there's also a heat sensor, so if you were upside down, knocked out or something, and it caught fire, I mean, it would go off by itself. You wouldn't have to pull the handle.
Right.
So yeah, the methanol, I think that's just it's for power. I mean, they straight up makes a ton of power, and because
Right.
we're not running any kind of power out our deal, it's all on the motor. So like that's how you squeeze the most of it. I mean, we run the compression, it's 15
Right.
plus, and so um, the colder the
Right.
fuel, the more you can compress it, and the bigger the boom in there, the more power it makes. So
Okay.
yeah.
Right. What kind of horsepower numbers you guys typically are around for a 410?
So 410 deal, the shaver that I had was, they say it's 880 plus on the mag, and then around 900 on the trigger. So, but
Oh,
I've
geez.
heard of guys run more or less. It just depends. I mean,
Right.
like when you make that much power, I mean, for the wing cars, they need them. Like they want to make as much power as possible because they're
Right.
just that's like there's like the motor on the track with the wing on. It's like they're on the dyno. Like it's just lugged down, and they're just using
Right.
every inch of it. But like the non-wing car, you really can't use it. So to have all that power is
Right.
kind of not dumb. It's just you have to really be on like your tuning window as far as like grip and stuff in the car, because
Mm-hmm.
you can make it go with an 850 or 830. It just depends. Kind of deal like at especially at the small
Right.
joints. I mean, you see the 360s. A couple good guys have won, mostly Troy Rutherford at Ventura with the 410s, like because you just can't use all the 410 power, and they're
Right.
lighter. And so when the track goes slick, I mean, the 360 cars are a little better. Just late, super late in the
Right.
race, and so yeah, they're about 900. Everybody says 900. I don't know how true it is, you know.
Yeah, right. And weight wise with the driver, what these cars weigh roughly?
The minimum is 1375 is the national rule, and I think they bumped the CRA guys up, but it was 1325 at one point. I don't know how everybody is on
1,325
Yep.
pounds.
So I don't know who was on that
Okay.
weight, dude. This last car I had put together was
Right.
all tie and stuff. And with me in it, I was 1525. So like the car
Hmm.
weighed 1325 without me in it, kind of deal. But yeah,
Right.
1525 with me in it. So I mean, I've asked around a couple dudes around 1475, 1450. I don't
Right.
know who's getting that down that light. I mean, you can probably do it. I mean, I know there were some spots on my car where it was heavier, but yeah, I
Right.
mean, I don't know. I mean, like it's hard to get down there. I mean, for me to look at, you could spend money and do
Right.
carbon body, and you could do all the tie stuff in the
Hmm.
rear end and titanium drive shaft and um, half steering box. I had a full steering box just because of that's what I had, kind of deal. Um,
Right.
but yeah, they get down there. That's the rule. So 1375, I think that's attainable for a national dudes. So I think that's what they run. We're running close to maybe
So
1400.
1375, or we'll just go 1400,
Yeah.
900 horsepower on
Yep.
dirt, which isn't exactly a very grippy surface. So I can definitely tell it's these are a handful, um, you know, to drive. So what's it like, behind the wheel, on a any given night, you know.
Well, like let's say, because I ran Paris a lot. So like let's say you show up at Paris
Mm.
and it's hammered down. Like the first, like it's going to be a little slick, a little
Right.
slimy, and like the first couple hot lap sessions with qualifying, like you better be on your game. So it's scary, dude.
Right.
Like to hold the throttle down that long at Paris. I mean, it's not scary. It's just uncomfortable because you have to trust. You have to put
Right.
so much trust in the car, and you're going. What I mean,
Right.
100 plus. I mean, it's just it's a wild ride. So you have to be aggressive enough to control the car and like show the car who's boss. We have to be like have your head on you
Right.
to control. To know what to do to control it. It's like a ballet kind of deal. I mean, they're super
Right.
they're on the edge, and you have to be really, purposeful with all of your moves with both your feet and your hands.
Mhm.
Um, and if not, I mean, it could sting you, or if you were going too fast and you're like, oh
Right.
man, that's a little, maybe I'm not going to get on the throttle that quick.
Right.
You could end up biking up. I mean, so it's just all it's a blast when you get out of like when you go on a roller coaster and you're like, oh man, that's a big jump, or you're like that's a big drop, and that's a big hoop and a big circle, and it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I kind of want to do it, and you get on it and you're kind of like shaking and you do it and you're like,
Right.
oh, you're having like, oh, like this is kind of crazy, and then you get off, you're like, oh, that was
Right.
fun. Like that's exactly what like I feel like a sprint car deal is. I mean, like
Right.
it's super fun when you look back at it, but like when you're doing it, you're like just in the zone, like super focused, like you have to be, because I mean it'll sting you. So you got to be, you got
Right.
to feel it out. You got to make sure you're in the right spot on the track. I mean, it's a bunch of subconscious things that you have to do as far as you got to pay
Right.
attention to the car, how you think it feels, and so you can relay that to your guys, like from the heat race to the main, or relay it to yourself. Like I know what I'm going to do here. I know what I'm going to do here. Twist on the shocks a
Mhm.
little bit, raise the nose, kind of thing. But yeah,
Right.
it's a blast. I mean, hammer down the straightaway, lift, set the car, and you have to get back to the throttle because if you only run 8 pounds of tire pressure or less, it just depends. So when
Oh
yeah,
wow,
so
that low.
yeah, so yeah, eight and a half is what we started the night out at, and then 4.5 on the left rear, to get your stagger. Some guys run more or less. It just depends on who you were and how you feel and stuff. I mean, if the track's so heavy, you run 9 over
Mhm.
there. But yeah, if you don't get back to the throttle, I mean, you could feel it, rolling over. Um,
Mhm.
so you got to get back to the throttle, and then kind of make the car go where it wants, or it should go where you want it based off the setup.
Right.
It should be easier to drive, but and then about halfway of the
Right.
corner, you should be getting back almost to full throttle. And then when you're leaving, got to make sure the car's straight, and yeah, just hammer down to the next. I mean, to the next corner, and then lift and start all over. So
Right.
yeah, it's a blast. I love it, dude. I mean, it's nothing you've ever driven.
Yeah.
Like you ever driven. You have to be super aggressive, but you have to be super finessey. I mean, it's, because you're racing on super slick dirt, and you're trying to get every ounce of traction. So I mean, the dirt patch might be only a couple
Right.
inches wide, and you're trying to look forward and trying to make sure the right rear's in the grip, or the left rear. Just depends on what you're trying to do that night, kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun, technical, but simple. So it's
Right. Right.
yeah.
And the track surfaces, typically clay. I don't think I've ever. Is there ever a non-clay surface that you're aware of on any tracks out there?
Not that I'm aware of. I know it's like some tracks are
Okay.
different, like different clay, and I
Right.
mean, some guys might not have clay. I don't know what Ventura did. They put some stuff and mixed it in, and it's more like grainy
Right.
now. But like Paris, how it stacks up the curb, and it's all
Mm-hmm.
wet, and it's just builds up. Like Ventura used to
Right.
do that a long time ago, but they put some stuff in there. But I forget what it's called. But yeah, I think, and then we went to Mojave, and
Okay.
I don't know what that was. Um, I don't know. I think that's just like parking lot dirt. I don't know. It was, it wasn't very hooked up the whole night, even when it was
Right.
wet. But yeah, I think most of them, I mean, are clay on top. They try,
Right.
but it's something. It's
Right.
we're constantly moving the dirt throughout the night, and then they move it, through the week or whatever, and then we constantly blow through the dirt. So it just depends on how thick their clay level or their clay
Mm-hmm.
feet is, like how many feet of clay they have on it.
Right.
So I mean, we'll get down to it. It's
Okay.
just because we just
Right.
sprint cars
Right.
dig through it. I mean, um, specifically the non-wing cars, because we have to use the dirt, like the hooked up dirt, to turn the corner, kind of thing. Like a wing car could pretty much turn
Right.
through the slick. I mean, and like all of like the support classes, like the lightning sprints and stuff, like they'll pretty much just turn through the slick,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. But we are literally using the good dirt to turn the car. I mean, otherwise you just ain't going, you're
Right.
just not going fast. So, um, yeah. So the non-wing cars are a
Gotcha.
little more tough on the track, I guess you could say, for the track guys.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So on a typical night, one thing that's a little bit different with sprint car racing compared to traditional. I mean, I don't know if traditional is the right word, but say like NASCAR, right? Is your format that you guys run. Even for me, can be a little bit confusing
Mm-hmm.
because you go to a typical NASCAR race, you have practice, qualifying, maybe another practice session, and then you have the race, right? And that's it. Dirt track racing, you have, wheel pack, then you have hot laps, and then you have C mains, B mains, A mains, then you have transfer spots and inverted fields and stuff, and it can get a little bit confusing. So kind of just walk me through a typical format from after you parked and, got your car all ready to go. Like what's the format looking like for a typical USAC race?
So typical CRA deal. Drivers meetings at 5:30. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Get back. I think they give us like 30 minutes after it's done, or 15 minutes. Get in the car, get out wheel pack. Everybody wheel packs. They're really stickler about if you're late to wheel pack, you're going to lose a spot for qualifying, and that can be detrimental because basically if the track wears in it through qualifying, because everybody gets a single car qualify. If you have to go to the back and only get a lap, because everybody gets two. If you have to go to the back, that could be detrimental. So they kind of threaten that. They threaten that for hot laps
Right.
too. So you do wheel pack. Everybody packs track in, top to bottom. Get all the, because they rip the track up with rippers, or it's whatever they can do, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the track has, water it really really good, and then we seal it off. So the weight of our cars, and we have big old steamroller tires, so there's really nothing that can back the track like a sprint car. So a bunch of us, we get it packed in a couple. I mean, some tracks they leave us out there a long time, or some tracks it's like two or three laps. Like the track rolls in really fast, depending on
Mm-hmm.
the size. But Paris usually you do about 10 or so. I mean, not a lot. You just idle around, and then towards the end of it, you kind of get a little, kind of feel it out, because you're going to go hot lapping, and you want to be on your game for hot laps. You kind of feel the track out, see where it's slippery, see where it's grippy or not. Like not full throttle down the straightaways, nothing. Just kind of playing off a couple areas and see what your car feels
Mm-hmm.
like. And then if you're in the first group of hot laps, usually they leave you out there, and then you can just go. They get four to five usually of hot laps, like just green flag, fill your car out, get the motor warmed up if you didn't have an engine heater, kind of thing. And then you pull back in, and then you basically I stayed in the car because I didn't like to get out. And I just let my guys tell me like what the track's going to do and like how I think it's what we should do kind of thing. We kind of did a little, I just stayed in the car because basically you pull into the pits, they look at the car, you do your little adjustments, and then you push right back out and you're going to the opposite end of the track or to the, to the staging lanes, and you're going to go out for single car qualifying. Now, single car qualifying, depending on where you're at, is nerve wracking because this is the fastest you need to go all night.
Right.
You got to be on point. You just got 4 or 5 laps, and the track might not be wore in yet, especially if you're in the first group. Yes, you get up there and you hope you made the right decision. Got the bleeders on, got the wheel cover on, and your crew guy pushes you up, and they make sure you're in gear, and they give you a big old fist bump, and like, yeah, let's get some, like, hammer down, dude. Like, like get with, like, because like this is the only this sets your pace for the night. I mean, no one cares how fast you were how laps. No one cares if you transfer from the heat race. I mean, it depends on your qualifying. So you get out and you do the best laps you could possibly do for what you were given that at that point in time. And then kind of you take a big old deep breath when you're pulling into the pits. You get roll across the scales, make sure you're of weight. They don't really check much after qualifying, just the weight, make sure you're of weight. And I think they check the tire, make sure you're running the right tire. And then you, depending on how many cars showed up, usually about, if there was 30 around here, I think they run 4 heat races. Maybe 30. Yeah, it just depended. It just depended. 3 or 4 heat races, depending on the car count. Usually 8 cars, 8 to 10 cars per heat race. And there'd be 3 or 4. So 3 or 4, and then top 4 transfer. So transfer meaning you get your qualifying spot for the main event. So if you transfer in the top 4 spots, you get your transfer spot. So like if you didn't qualify in the top 6 out here, it really doesn't matter. Like you can qualify 7th, and you cannot transfer from the heat race, and then you could have to run a B. And if you run the B and you transfer from the B, you get set. You start 7th. Like it's not, unless some guy from the top 6 didn't transfer, then he doesn't get his spot back if he has to run the B. But so if you're in top 6, you want to qualify 1st or 6th because you get a little. I think you get a couple points for 1st if you're chasing the points, and then 6th, if you qualify 6th, you're going to start in the front row of the main event. You're starting the pole, 1st or 2nd, depending if all 6 guys transfer from the heat races. And then from there, they're going to be the B main. I think is top 6 or top 8, depending on how many heat races they had. They start 22 cars in the A main, and that's lined up all based off your qualifying. Doesn't matter how you did your heat race. Like you could run 2nd in heat race, and you could have qualified 18th, and you're going to start 18th. That's just the name of the game. So the qualifying at the beginning of the night really sets the pace out here, which is cool, which is not cool. It just depends if you like to qualify or if you don't like to qualify. So it's definitely nerve wracking for a guy like me. I was always not nervous. It's just like it's your whole night based. It's based on those 2 laps, and I wasn't a very good qualifier. So like the last time we ran there, qualified 18th, and then you got to run through all the pack, which is cool. But by the time you get up to the 7th or 8th place dude, I mean the 6th and 5th and 4th, I mean those guys are checked out just because they had some clean air.
Right.
So it's just that's basically a night. And you run the heat race is 10 laps, so you have 10 laps to transfer basically. And then the B mains, if you didn't transfer from the heat race, is 12 laps, and then the A mains 30 laps. It's just wham bam. They don't count yellow laps, so if there's a bunch of yellows, I mean you're out there. You're just pacing around, leading the fuel out, making sure you're saving your fuel. Or 30 laps, or it's 45 minutes, I think, from the first car bumping off. So then they'll do, if you run like 46 minutes, they'll throw a red, let everybody get fuel. But you're doing 30 green flag laps. There's no, it's not like NASCAR where they count all the yellows,
Right.
Yeah. So it's a sprint race. It's sprint cars, sprint race. I mean, you got to be on your game. I mean, it's a short race, but it's a long race. So a lot can happen.
It definitely makes for a long afternoon because I'll show up to the track 1 p.m. That's usually when the most other people are kind of just rolling into the pits and just kind of getting ready, and then we don't get out until sometimes midnight. So it can definitely be for a very, very long, but it's a lot of racing because not only do you have the sprint cars, which usually are the main headliners, but also you have all the support races in between, lightning sprints and modifieds and stuff. So there's always stuff going on the racetrack. But yeah, you mentioned qualifying. Qualifying is always kind of exciting for me to watch because like you guys have to find the edge as quick as possible. So when you push off, and you're on the back stretch or wherever you push off, and actually, you know what, kind of, because these cars don't have starters,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have to, so what is the starting procedure on how to get one of these cars fired up?
Okay, yeah. So let's go over that. So basically,
Yeah.
your quad or your push vehicle from the pits pushes you up to the staging lanes or the push off area, because there's staging and then there's a push off area. So you get pushed off, then you got to put the car in gear. So it's a little lever on your right hand side. You push it down. They make sure they rock you, make sure it's locked in. And then a truck or a push vehicle, like a powerful push vehicle, comes behind you and pushes you to where your tires turn, which turns the motor because you're in gear. And then you watch the oil pressure come up. And so all the switches are off, all the mags off and everything. And then you watch the oil pressure come up, and then you hit the mag. It didn't fire because I forgot to tell you to turn the fuel on. When you put the car in gear, you gotta make sure to turn the fuel on. A lot of guys, new guys, get nervous. You put the car in gear, like, okay, cool, because it's not a fiasco. It's just it's a lot of stuff to remember. And then on top of driving one of these cars, it's second nature now as far as what everybody does. But when you're new, it's like, oh man, I can't imagine. I mean, I've done it 4 or 5 times, just being a rookie. Like, oh man, why is the thing not starting? Oh, the fuel's not on. So because the fuel is on your steering column underneath, usually underneath or on the side. It's just a lever, like a quarter turn lever kind of deal. So you gotta make sure the fuel's on, make sure the oil pressure's up, and then you hit the mag, and usually it'll take a little bit, it'll kind of bump off, and then you kind of give it a little gas, or maybe not, just depends on how you turned it off, like how you shut the car off. And then you kind of pull away from the push truck, and then it's all you kind of thing. So yeah, for qualifying, I mean, they bump you off and you got to instantly hit the hammer. I mean, they say be careful, be easy on the rock, on the push truck guys, because you're shooting rocks or more, clay.
Right.
And so but you kind of pull away really fast. Usually they'll push you off from the bottom of the track, and you kind of got to pull away right into the racing group, and then just hit the hammer. And you get, depending on where we're at, you get Paris, you get a half lap because it gets you off on the back straightaway. Ventura, you get a full wind up lap because you can't, they have to push you onto the track to get bumped off. Santa Maria, same thing. I think Mojave was the same too. I don't remember, unless we got pushed off, because they had a long push chute there. I can't remember if they gave us the green right when we came across from the push chute. I can't remember.
I think it was a full lap because they push you on turn 4.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
So basically you just have that really short straightaway, right? So I think you do get a full lap before the clock starts.
Yeah. So yeah, usually they'll give you,
I think so.
That at the small places is cool because you get a full side lap of oh, okay, I know where I kind of need to be. You get you can feel it and see if you need to give a little more throttle, a little less. But Paris, you get, you just had your hot lap session for 3 or 4, 5 laps. It just depends on how fast the track had worked in. And if you were, group 1, it's slick, group 1 slick. You really have no data. You were just buzzing the motor. So now you got to come out on the tracks fast because everybody just blew it off in the last 2 or 3 sessions, depending on how many cars there were. And you got to find the grip instantly. So you just have to you should have your guys, or you could have gotten out and looked and see where the racing group was. When I get into turn 1, I need to be in this lane, right up against the cushion, or all the curbs big. There's a hole there. These guys are bouncing. Let me shoot across the center, kind of deal. So yeah, there's you don't really get a lot of warm up at Paris, but everywhere else, I guess you do. You get a nice little warm up. But yeah, you have to be on kill. As soon as you basically unload off the trailer, you got to use hot laps as a quick test session. You got to have the car hopped up for that too. I mean, if it's slick, you got to have the air pressure down. You got to be watching. So you can't just go out there with your base 10 pounds in the right rear. Let's cruise around and then try to go, light speed in qualifying, because you really only have 2 laps. So yeah, it's that early part of the night is really detrimental or beneficial to how your night goes, because basically everybody's pretty. I mean, there's the top 6 dudes are super fast, but if you had to start, if I had to start 12th, I'm probably going to run 8th or 9th, because I had to get through, because the other dudes in that middle group from 7th to 15th are all pretty close, in speed, and it just depends on their night, if they're feeling good or if they're not feeling good. Yeah, it just depends. So yeah, that first part of the night super
Right.
super detrimental. In my case, I'm not a qualifier, so that.
Right.
But like I like to race, and the racing deal you get more because there's no cars to like judge yourself off of. So when you get racing, you know you
Mm,
can judge yourself and see how you're. You can see like where he's gaining or where he's not gaining, kind of
right.
deal. But yeah.
So next thing I kind of want to go over is, you know, budgets, right? You know, it's there's I've because there's a little bit of disparity. I'm thinking in terms of like sponsorship and stuff. We can compare the CRA guys to like the USAC nationals. You know, USAC national guys. I mean, obviously they have really big corporate sponsors and stuff. But with the CRA guys, you're mostly local mom and pop. Some are even self funding yourself. So I'm just kind of curious on what does it take cost wise to run a full program.
So um, I don't know. I've never ran a full season, so
Hmm.
but I'll tell you, like every night we wanted to, like every night we went just because like that's our hobby. Um, I didn't want to show up
Right.
without like the best shot. So we had, the front towers, just depending on, if we needed new fronts or not. Like the fronts, you can go 3 or 4 races, if depending on how the track was the previous couple races.
Hmm.
But rear tires, we showed up with at least 4 new rears, two brand new rights and two brand new lefts. Like that's like the bare minimum. Um, Usually
Hmm.
we had 5 or 6, just depending, brand new tires every night. And then you're going to show up. I mean, you're going to either have your own fuel, your drum of fuel, which is 55 gallons, and that's like $350 depending on where you get it. Or you go to the truck, the fuel truck lady at Paris or
Hmm.
Ventura, and you get fuel, and that's $5 or $6 a gallon. And you use about 35 gallons a night, and then you show up. Like there's like basically it's empty jugs at the end of the night, maybe 5 gallons left because you needed 5 for a red or something, for later in the night if you needed it. But yeah, so we spent. I mean, and then you got to get everybody's pit band, depending on how many people you brought. So we spent about 2,500 to 3,000 a night, and we just like going racing, dude. So we weren't chasing no points, and
Right.
so yeah, it's costly. But I mean, I know all the dudes that chase the points. I mean, they're not showing up without the all brand new tires and good fuel and the best shocks, and then you got to have a
Right.
spare set of the best shocks because they're open wheels and they touch, and then it hurts parts. So you got to have
Right.
spare rear end ready to go in the car. You got to have spare all the radius rods, spare bird cages, spare front axle with all the brakes bled. Same thing with the rear end. It's got brakes on it. And they're bled and they got quick release fittings on them. Some
Hmm.
guys have spare steering boxes. It just depends if you're running for points, kind of thing. Some guys got spare cars. You just pull the
Right.
backup car down, put some wheels and tires on it, and
Right.
go race that. That happens, sometimes, especially at like oval nationals, like when everybody's just hanging it out in qualifying because it's super. Like the national dudes are in town, and you might misjudge your entry or something, and end up on the fence, and then you just got
Hmm.
to pull your backup car down. It happens to everybody.
Right.
So not a lot of dudes out here have backup cars, but there are dudes that have backup cars. I was not one of those dudes. So that always, in the back of your mind, if you're paying for it and if you're working hard for your stuff, um, that plays a part in how fast you go or how many chances you take, like
Right.
when you're racing. Because if you got
Right.
a spare car, I mean, oh man, like I might, you might drive a little harder, just knowing you have something else to race that night or next week, kind of thing. But yeah, mostly like the sponsor thing out here. I don't know why. It's just tough to get sponsors out here. It's mostly guys that have parents like mine or that have done well and they
Hmm.
want to go racing. So um, not a lot
Right.
of bigger. I mean, Damien's had the POL thing, like that was like a
Hmm.
one off, not a one off thing, but that was a super good deal to bring like that kind of visibility of our sport to like
Right.
that area or like that area of the of the auto enthusiast culture kind of
Right.
deal. So that was cool. But yeah, it's we don't get a lot of. There's not as many races as the national dudes. And then just until recently, the flow thing wasn't a thing out here um, at all.
Right.
So I mean, they had the loud pedal video guys, and they'd sell you DVDs of the race, from the week prior, kind of thing.
Hmm.
But there was nothing really to show your sponsors, kind
Right.
of thing. So yeah, it's just tough. I mean, everybody gets like, I got a couple auto shops and stuff, to get, $500-600, every couple races kind of thing, but nothing, it's tough. It's like, it's a lot of dollars to go racing, especially when you want to
Right.
race to the best of your ability. I mean, you can show up, you don't have to show up with brand new tires. You don't have to, but if you want to
Right.
run in the top 10, I mean, I'm putting brand new rubber on every night. So every main event. So
Right.
no matter, even if the tires look good from the heat race, I'm pulling them off the car. I'm going to put brand new rubber on because I want the best
Right.
shot at racing these dudes, because all the guys in front of me definitely have brand new rubber on, because you don't know what
Right.
the track's going to do, especially nowadays, like the later years. It's gotten rubber down everywhere we go. I mean, so when the rubber comes, it takes tread off, and so you better have all the tread you could have at the beginning of the race, because when it comes to the end, it's who can save the most tire gets to the end.
Right.
So you might pick up a couple spots like that at the end, just depending on how hard you are on your tires, kind of thing. So yeah,
Right.
and then I was changing oil and filter every race just because I wanted to keep up on the motor deal. So that's expensive, $70-$80,
Right.
for an oil change and a filter, and then brake clean and WD-40 and
Right.
just all your chemicals and stuff. And then you gotta put gas and groceries, and gotta keep the
Right.
quad filled up with gas. You gotta have nitrogen to fill up the shocks, and we fill our tires with nitrogen, so you gotta have the nitrogen bottles filled during the week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the nitrogen basically doesn't when it heats up, it doesn't expand as much as like regular, like atmospheric air, like from
Right.
air compressors. So basically you don't, because like the tires are spinning them so fast, you're going to gain pressure because they get heat, they build a little heat. So basically that's what the bleeders are for. So some guys run digital bleeders, like we did. Most everybody now runs digital. If not, you can run like a little spring pop off ones. So you can set them per the pressure with like a little gauge kind of thing. They all work the same, but the digital ones are just so like you're super consistent kind of thing. But sometimes that's in a whole nother game too. You have to set them a little higher
Right.
because even though you run nitrogen, like if you're running, let's say we're in 15 laps green, and the tire's built up, and the bleeder's been letting it off, so the car's been running good, and then you get a yellow, and then the tires cool off, and so then the air pressure comes down because the same molecules are still in there, so they were just hot, and now all of a sudden they're small, so they're colder. So the tire pressure goes down, so you have to play that game. You have to run the bleeder up a little bit, so then when that does happen, because you're going to get a yellow, especially out here. I mean, it's
Right.
rare that we go green, white checker out here. The national dudes do it. They got a lot of talent. Not to say we don't have a lot of talent out here, but we just have guys that just don't do it a lot. I mean, we don't run 50 races a
Right.
year. We run, I mean, even this year, I think there's 20 or something, 20 plus.
Right.
But I mean, not everybody runs all the races. So you're going to have a couple yellows. People, make a couple mistakes, spins,
Right.
or get tangled up because people want to. I mean, people like to race. I mean, even though people are paying for their old stuff, I mean, everybody races hard. I mean, no one's really given too much of an inch. I mean, especially
Right.
the higher you go in the rankings. I mean, up the leaderboard, no one's giving an inch up there. So you're racing hard.
Right.
But yeah, nothing. So yeah, the bleeder thing that's a game. That's a setup game. On
Right.
top of the shocks and then your tires and stuff. So the cars are simple, but the cars are not simple. Kind of deal. You got to
Right.
play. Got to play the game, and there's no
Right.
model.
Now I know with
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
right. I would say there's in terms of course your situation's a little bit different because you're more of a family run race team, but typically for an average sprint car team, how many people and crew, and typically who does what?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of. I see it like I look around the pits, and there's a lot of. Some guys have like 2 dudes, and some guys have like 10. So I don't know
Right.
with the guys that have 10. I don't know what they're doing, what everybody's doing, but I know
Right.
that. So like me and my brothers, so me and my 2 brothers, and then my dad run it, and then along with my girlfriend. So my girlfriend handles my helmet and my tear offs all night, kind of thing. Make sure the battery's charged in the receiver because you have a one-way receiver. Um, Me and my brothers throughout the week will mount tires and then groove them, like take turns, kind of thing. Usually I groove most, but if we're gonna have to groove at the track, usually they do most of the grooving. And then my dad and brother. So let's say we come in from the heat race and we take notes from everything. So I get out the car. My brother Hunter, he jacks the car up. My brother Jake makes sure I'm out the car. Then he makes sure the car's neutral. Does the stagger. While that's happening, my girlfriend and my other brother Hunter. So one will turn off one bleeder, one will turn off the other. So the pressures don't go down, so we can measure the stagger. And then my dad's kind of checking all the bolts, making sure all like going over the car. And he's kind of talking with me like what we kind of need to do as far as setup combo. So, I mean, you could do it with three, like a driver and three people, driver and two. So, you could do it like a driver and one other person. I know like Rick Hendricks and his wife do it. But I don't know how much they're checking. Like he's doing it so long, he just knows kind of thing, but we're just checking everything. Just doing a lot of notes, a lot of what the track looked like. So, and then as far as setup wise, it's me and my brothers and my dad. We kind of, put our heads together and what the track was. And then, a little driving critique mostly, making sure I'm on my game, as much as I can be, making sure I'm driving it how they think I should be driving, like, comparing it, because I can't watch behind me or watch in front of me. I'm trying to pay attention to the track and, just maybe a couple dudes in front of me kind of thing, trying not to run them over or trying to, pass them. So yeah, they're making sure I'm hitting my marks and lifting at the right spot and setting the car, and what, if I'm not, kind of what can we do to get the car to do that, or, what do you need the car to do, like how to feel. So, and then as far as that, like turns in the race car, I do all the turns, just because I want to touch the car kind of thing. I want to help out on race night kind of thing. So I'm touching the car. I do all the shock turns myself. No one touches the shocks but me, so I know that they're in the right spot. Then my brothers, they work on wheel spacing together, making sure the stagger's right throughout the night. So nothing. Everybody has their own job. My one brother Jake rides the quad always. He'll push me up to the push off, and then he'll ride the quad down to the other area. As far as for like heat races and stuff. And then for the main, everybody, we pit on, like at Paris, there's a pit, a hot pit, and the quads and all the stuff's down there with all spare tires and spare shocks and spare radius rods and stuff, just in case you have a little incident, because they give you 60 seconds. Once the field's lined up in the hot pit, they give you 60 seconds. They'll wait for you 60 seconds, but just depends on how bad you were in an accident. If you were in a yellow, but you kind of get away, you get a little more time. But if you were like the yellow and they were towing you off the track, you'll get 60 seconds. So most guys can change a couple radius rods, change a tire. I haven't seen an axle done in a long time in that fast. I mean, I know guys have done it and they've gotten the brakes, like where they went green and they had a yellow instantly, so they still went back to the last lap. So you get to go back on the track. So as soon as another lap's completed and you're in the hot pits, like you're just go ahead and go to the trailer kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I know like a lot of dudes only have bare minimum, but like some guys have like 10 or 12 dudes. I don't know what they're doing. They're scraping mud every time. I don't know. I know that's a lot of people to be walking around. Sometimes it's tight with just us five. I mean, it's us five. Us five, and it's kind of tight. It's just, but everybody has their own job. Make it like when the car comes in, as the car goes out, baby oil, make sure the tire pressure is good. My brothers do all of that. The fuel, my dad and my brother do that, just to make sure you're checking the mileage, because we're doing 10 laps, and that's pretty much just wide open, kind of not wide open, but like that's your fuel mileage for the night. There's no so like you kind of judge off that and put as much as you need in the tank. And so yeah, that's everybody has their job. But I mean, I've seen Rick Hendricks and his wife, they just do it together. It's just, which is tough, but it can be done. Basically, you just need you and a push quad person, for the pits, and you can go racing. But it just depends. Like if he had an accident heat race, it's like he always has a couple. Like people love to jump in throughout the pits. Like even my brothers, like they like if people come in the hot pits, they'll run over there. Like my brother Jake loves that stuff. He's like, I came to work on cars, dude. So like if someone comes in the hot pits, like I'm helping them. Other than you, like if you were in the hot pits thing. But I think when we were at Bakersfield the first time, you put the GoPro in my car. I think 3 or 4 cars came into the hot pits, and he worked on all of them. He's like, yeah, I was jumped in there, dude, change a tire. And
Right.
I was like, dang, dude, like you're working hard. So, yeah.
Right.
So it just, you don't need a lot of people, but it definitely takes a core group of people that want to be there and want to be a part of it.
Right.
They want to learn together as a group kind of thing. You know, everybody's got to be like, if you leave the bleeder off, you know, it kind of, you know, the bleeder ain't working. So your tire pressure's up and it changes the stagger on the car one way or the other. And, you know, that can mess up your heat race or your qualifying or your main event. So everybody has their job to do, and you have to make sure that they do it. So everybody's double checking. You check the bleeders, do the fuel, because if you don't double check, then something could be missed. But if you do, you know, it's just, you know, oh, okay, like, yep, did that kind of thing. So that was kind of our motto. Just double check, because if you leave something off, you know, it's detrimental. You don't fuel the car up. I mean, you run 10 laps and it's like, oh man,
Right.
you run out of fuel. You're getting tore up from cars behind you
Right.
because everybody's on the hammer.
Right.
You know, so as far as at the track, 4 dudes, you could probably do it. You could race all year with 4 dudes. I think Roa does it. 4 dudes,
Right.
him, his dad, Zach, and one other dude. Usually it's just 4 dudes like hammer down, like they're there to do business. Eddie does it pretty light. I think Eddie does it, him and his dad, and I think Melissa and KP. Just depends on the night. I think definitely Melissa, but like, yeah. So you could do it with light, and it's way more fun. I mean, not way more fun. It's just more stuff to do. I'm sure it's more fun, like more memories kind of deal.
Right.
But if you don't want everybody to work too hard, 4 dudes, you could probably run the whole deal.
Right.
But yeah, that's a lot of fun, dude. Everybody has a lot of fun. I like going even like to help buddies at the 360 races when I'm not racing because I like these cars. I like to work on them. So I like working on them too. It's not just like I love to drive them, so I'm there checking the track out. Like, I like to work on them too. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
So the one question I definitely, before I forget, I have to ask this because I ask this of a lot of people because I always find the answers to be very entertaining. So race car drivers in general seems to be, I think next to baseball players, some of the most superstitious people that I have ever come across, especially if you ever, you know, like Grabowski, right? He's into it, right? Like the peanuts and can't eat peanuts around him, no green, right? It's just crazy. So what are your superstitions? And if you don't have any, like what's like your race day routine?
Yeah, dude, like I never really had any superstitions. I like all the colors kind of thing. I'm not worried about different colors on the car or colors around me kind of thing. The green thing wasn't my thing. Like, you know, Damien and Roa was green for like Roa is always green. So, you know, I didn't run green. I had a green little like small race car, like trophy car before. So I really wasn't like superstitious. I mean, I feel like that stuff, like growing up, like you get like when you're a young racer, like you think like you're more impressionable to that stuff. Like, I did terrible that night, so I'm not running green no more. But I never really had that thing. But like my race day routine, I mean, get up, you know, it just depends on where we're going. Like if we're going to Paris, I live 45 minutes from Paris, so we're getting up at 9, have a nice little breakfast, get to the shop, get in the truck, and go down there, get lunch on the way down. Already have the cooler stuff packed. Get there, unload the car, get the shocks on it, kind of hang out, just some stagger. Then driver's meeting comes around, you kind of hang out. You know, everybody's talking. Driver's meeting comes around.
Right.
The only thing I did was like I always put my left foot first in all my stuff, like my underwear, like my fireproof underwear, and then your suit. Like that was the only thing, and I tied my left shoe first. That was the only thing I did like every time. Like I'm like, I'm gonna tie my left shoe. Like, but it wasn't like I'm gonna tie my left shoe. Like because last time I tied my right, and I did terrible. So I mean, I've done it. I mean, I don't really have that deal. It's just when you show up to race day and you're not, if you're nervous or if you're underprepared, it's like a test. Someone told me this one time.
Right.
It's like a test. Like so, if people ask if you get nervous, and it's like you're only nervous if you didn't study for the test, right? So if you did everything you could
Right.
do at the shop, um, and it's all in your control as far as a driver and as far, I mean, it's racing and so stuff happens and, you can miss something, but if you did all like everything you could possibly do at the shop and you did everything you could do as far as what you have on the car and,
Mm.
you're going to drive it to the best of your capability, you shouldn't really be nervous. You should just be like excited, like, let's see what's going to happen. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I don't know, like, Grabowski's, yeah, definitely about the superstitions, but hey, if it works for him, it works for him. And so if he has to tell himself,
Right.
or people have to tell themselves, like, "Oh man, I don't need that around me to do better," then that's cool. I mean, if that makes him feel good, like,
Right.
because those cars are all about confidence. So like, if you don't have confidence in yourself as a driver, as a person, it's hard to show that on the track. I know people walk around. Some
Mm.
people are quiet, and I understand that. But like, if you don't have self confidence in like yourself as a person, like when you're on the track, it shows because you're like, I don't know if I should go there. You have to make super
Right.
quick decisions, and you have to stick with them. So yeah, that kind of translates, as far as your personality to the racetrack. I know somebody like Christopher Bell, like super quiet and all that, but like he's a confident dude. Like when he walks around,
Right.
Connor Larson, and quiet, not quiet, but just not super
Right.
talkative, but when they get in the car, but like their self confidence is up because they've done all they could, at the
Right.
house and you know preparing themselves. So that's how I showed up to every race if I did, because I did all of the prep and stuff on all the car. I don't,
Right.
at least double checked it all. If I felt good about that, I felt good showing up. So I'm like eager to get the night going. That was more of like my like jitters was like, let's get it going. Like I'm here at noon or here at
Right.
1 o'clock. Unload the car, like, and we don't get going until 6. Like we don't get on the track till 6.
Right.
Um, so that was like what the nerves were, So it wasn't like, oh man, this person wore a different color today.
Right.
I'm not about it. So I mean, I
Right.
understand the color thing for sure, but like, yeah, I never had anything
Right.
weird. But I never had my helmet painted, or no. I mean, actually, I did. I did have my helmet painted one time. I mean, maybe that's why I never had a helmet painted again. I flipped my stuff off, dude. I flipped bad at Paris one night.
Mm.
Painted up car, painted up helmet. Yeah, so maybe that's why my stuff's not painted or wrapped since then. Maybe that was like a
That's
subconscious
a
deal.
good point because I've always kind of wondered because I always thought it was just a cost thing, right? Because obviously it's expensive to go racing. So, if you don't really need to pay to have your helmet painted, then don't do it. But yeah, I never really considered. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
That's definitely interesting.
my deal was like it all chips the same. So I mean,
Right.
if you spent whatever on helmet paint, like it's chipping. So I mean, it looks cool. Like it looks cool for the photos.
Right.
I know Eddie gets his wrapped, and that looks sick because you can change it.
Mm-hmm.
You could change it all. I always wanted to get wrapped, just never had the time, kind of thing. Just because I didn't race
Right.
a bunch, so it wasn't like a bunch of like I need to look a certain way. I'm running it all out of the shop, the shop account basically.
Right.
So just put the logo,
Right.
on the car and logo on my suit, and all black it was. So I mean, this past year or past couple of years,
Right.
but yeah, some guys like to have the stuff painted. I know it looks cool, but yeah, it just depends. Just depends.
Yeah, that's the one thing I didn't really realize until recently is the rocks. I didn't really realize until I started, mounting GoPros, and then I'm looking at all the damage, to, my little camera. It's like you guys are just getting peppered when you're inside the car. I mean, does it hurt to get hit by by a rock, or it
Uh,
just depends?
yeah, it just depends. Like big rocks for sure,
Mm.
um, but
Right.
like all the roost, no, not really. You could just feel it on your face because like
Mm.
your
Right.
adrenaline's up and you're kind of looking through all that stuff, like as far as it being on your shield and stuff, pulling tear offs, but nothing that doesn't sting. But big rocks for sure sting. Um,
Mm.
not a, like Paris doesn't have a bunch. They're really
Right.
meticulous about picking that stuff up like in between events and stuff. And then in between like heat races and stuff, like there's guys scraping the wall, picking up rocks.
Mm.
But I think we went to where we go. I think Mojave. Mojave had some rocks, dog. I think I
Mm.
got stung in the heat race.
Right.
Yeah, like they don't sting. They just sting for a little bit, like in the moment, and then you come off. Like later at night, you're done, and the adrenaline's wearing off. Like, dang, what hit my
Right.
chest, dude? But I've had, I mean, I haven't had nothing come through the shield, like through the guard at me, the rock guard. But I've seen a couple of dudes. I think one this past season, I think Jake Hodges parked next to us, blew his carbon helmet apart, dude. I think he had, I don't know what he had come through and hit him. He said it was a rock or a piece of something. Came through the guard, or came through the rock guard, or through the side, because those aren't protected, kind of thing. And blasted his face shield, and the helmet hit his face, like gave him a big old, not a big old bruise, but it hit his face. So yeah, it's definitely it's just your face. It's just a little helmet, not a little helmet. It's a helmet just protecting you and from all the roofs. So it does sting, and it can hurt if the big stuff hits you. Usually, I mean, I've seen like not all the national dudes. Some national dudes run like no rock guard. Like Leary, he ain't running rock guard. And I'm like, dude, you are brave. That's brave to me. I mean, I don't know if they're hurting that much for weight. Like they're just taking the pound and a half titanium rock guard off. But yeah, that's just crazy. I mean, I don't like the up and down. Like I just had the up and down one. Some guys run like the crosses, and that's a little vision, blurring. But the up and down one, I never saw an issue like as far as vision, but definitely protection. Just because you're not trying to have the helmet break apart or the plastic lens hit your face. And I wear glasses, so I'm not trying to have the glasses or the shield break and then hit my glasses and poke my eye kind of deal. Or, if I didn't, to some guys, I just wear my normal, like everyday glasses. I don't have like a super set. I know like Trent Williams has like the ones like that fit his face real nice. And so he can like look out the side of his eyes and stuff. But like I wear the flat ones like this. So like I'm not turning my head always. And so less peripheral kind of, I guess. But yeah. So, I mean, actually I did when I crashed really bad. And my glasses came off, hit the shield, and then like cracked the shield that way. So yeah, I mean, the shield deal is weird, but yeah, that's all you have. I mean, you have 30 or so tear offs, 20 usually for a main event. Yeah, you'd always want more because if you don't need them, you don't need them. But you don't want to wreck your night because literally it's 30 pack for $1, or no, 30 pack for $30, and so every one he pulls $1. So, but if you're gonna ruin your night on not putting 10 more bucks on your face shield, like, oh man, I ran out of tear offs, man, I had to pull off. Like everybody's spending too much money. You're spending too much money. Everybody's in the stands is spending too much money to come see. Like, oh man, like you have people come to see you and like, oh man, like this guy pulled off for 10 laps because he didn't have tear offs on. Like, come on, bro. Like, so I know people run it like that, but like, it's just silly stuff that people like, oh man, I'm not spending the $10 or the $20 to put those on. Like I'm cool with 5. And you might be able to get away with that in Arizona or something. But out here it just depends. Like Paris, they're working the track a little bit before the main. I mean, Bakersfield, when we went up there, they worked the track before the main. I mean, it's hooked up. And so it's going to throw mud for a little bit. I mean, it's not going to be like wheel pack mud, but it's going to throw some mud. So you better be prepared to rip some tear offs, especially when you're starting in the back.
Right. So, one, topic that I definitely want to, kind of cover is basically just the state of sprint car racing in general, especially here in, the West Coast. So seems like the national guys, they're doing okay. I don't really see, because, they have fairly large purses, several $10,000 to win nights and stuff. Here on the West Coast, not so much. Obviously, we talked about, sponsorships and sponsorship issues. Costs are high to go racing. Average, like I've seen for, money to win, $2,000, $2,500, which, barely covers, your expenses for the night. So why do you think on the West Coast, especially Southern California, around this area, is sprint car racing, at least from me being an outsider looking in, it doesn't seem to be at a very healthy spot, or at least not what I used to seeing when growing up in Torrance and, going to Ascot every weekend. And, like, it seems to be struggling a little bit. Do you think it is? And why do you think why?
I think it's just the economy, like, kind of thing. Like, people don't want to let go of money, like, as far as like promoters, they want to make as much as possible, which I understand. But it's hard to get sponsors, and it's hard to get like sponsors for the race and stuff to put up that money, because people don't want to let go of money. So it's just kind of like basically the state of our economy. But it's hard to get. I mean, it's $2,500 on a normal night and $3,000 for like a couple specials, and then I don't know if they're gonna do anything extra this year. But like, yeah, you're right. The national dudes, it's 10,000. It was 10,000 a win on Saturday, at Bubba's Raceway Park, and I think theirs is like $3,000 or $3,500 for like a normal night or something, or $5,000. I'm not sure, but it's hard to get sponsors, and especially when you're running, if it's hard, it's just, especially when you're running not as many races as them. But California, like, it's a bunch of hobby dudes out here. Like, there's nobody doing it full time, getting paid. Non-wing the wings, couple wing dudes do, but everybody's got a day job, so. They got to make the most of their hours at work, and then they got to come home and they got to work on the car, and then they got to go to the races. So, and then it's hard for the series director to get sponsors, because no one wants to let go of money, because the times are so tough. I mean, it's expensive to just go drive around town right now. Gas is so expensive. So I think sprint car racing is hurting, but I don't think it's hurting because of like who's running it or people aren't coming to see it. Like, it's exciting stuff to come watch. As far, I'm a racer, but I mean, I bought a couple buddies of mine, like high school buddies, that just didn't even like know me. And like, we started hanging out after high school and stuff. And they're like, dude, like, what do you do? Like, let me come check it out. I'm like, oh my, like, I showed them videos and I'm like, oh yeah, it's cool, whatever. Right. And then they come see it in person. I'm like, oh my goodness, dude, like, this is crazy. Like, this is awesome. Right. Like, it's V8s and it's loud and it's in your face and it's really short. I mean, not really short, but like, dude, you get to see everybody. And so like the show is not boring, as far from a fan standpoint. Maybe there could be a little more drama. They let slide in the pits between some drivers and stuff, because that makes it entertaining. People watch stuff on TV and because it's entertaining, you get some hooks. Drama. That's part of entertainment. Right. So if they would let that slide more, maybe we get something, or maybe they let fights happen on the front stretch more often. Maybe we get more fans, but the sponsors, like, that's not professional. So on the flip side of that, like, as a series director, like, that's not professional. Because NASCAR, like, they don't let that slide. We're more of the grassroots deal, and it's more of like a passion down here, in like in this series deal. So, and everybody's working hard for their money. Everybody's putting as much money as they can in these cars to go around the track. So if they're not, so it's just a weird thing. I think it's just the economy not letting everybody spend as much as they'd like, because I'm sure everybody would love to spend money, or people just don't know about it. As far as like getting to sponsors and stuff, like, it's hard to get if the sponsor's like on the fence, like my buddies, if they're on the fence, like, oh, that's cool, man, I'm like, maybe, but if you bring them to a race and show them the show, start to finish and how it goes, and how that, Scott DeLacio at Paris does a phenomenal job announcing everybody's sponsors, mentioning every time the car, like, your car's on the track, make sure your sponsors are read correctly. Like, the show is cool. All of the series sponsors get mentioned a lot, especially on the interviews. But the interviews on the front stretch need to happen after the heat race. Like, the winners got to park on the front. You got to talk to them, because you got to make it personal to the fans. Got to make people want to be in it. And then and they do at Paris. They're pretty good about it. And then I like the stands on the fans on the track before the main. I like that deal at Paris, just because it gets everybody like, oh, look, this is a race car. I'm going to root for you, dude. Like, good luck. And then no one has to hang around, because I know it does. Like, you're right. Like, we stop at, it's midnight or something by the time we get out of there. So, and everybody has, it's a family venue at the track, and so the kids might not want to stay there late. So if they get to wait just enough to see the start of the main, like, oh, I just met this guy. He was cool. He was super nice. So I like that deal at Paris, because it gets it more personable to the drivers and stuff. So yeah, I don't know if there could be anything else. Like I just don't, as far as sponsor, getting big corporate, like not corporate, but corporate sponsors to get the purse up,
Mm,
because I think if the purse was up, more cars would come. Just people would scrounge a little more money to come and
right.
race. That's why the 410 deal has the most cars. I mean, usually because it's
Mm,
3,000 to win or 2,500 to win. Like a non-wing
right.
360 deal at the USAC level is 1,500 to win, and so they get not as much cars. I mean,
Right.
and then like the local, like Ventura runs their local stuff, and he's not getting a lot of cars. But it would if more
Right.
cars showed up, kind of thing. Like that's like his pay scale. But
Right.
yeah, $1,500 a night. Like if you win, like I ran fourth at a West Coast deal. Fourth at a West Coast deal paid
Mm,
like $600 or something. It wasn't nothing crazy.
right.
I'm like,
Oh wow.
dang, I'm running fourth. Like these guys, these three dudes in front of me are hitters, like in the 360 series, and I'm running as hard as I can, as fast as I can, and I'm running
Right.
fourth, and I get like $600, which is fine. I mean, we're not doing this to make money. We're doing this because we have some extra money.
Right.
You know, everybody racing this deal at
Right.
our local level is doing this because they have extra money and they want to go racing. Because it's a passion. It's like
Right.
it's like a drug. You know, it's just you get hooked on it,
Right.
and you can't stop. Even you're like, dude, I'm traveling to go shoot photos. Like I love sprint
Mm,
cars, dude. Like I'm gonna shoot sprint cars.
right.
So it's more of a passion deal out here. Um,
Right.
if it paid more, I'm sure more people will come, but it's hard to get people to give up money to get paid more when,
Right.
if the show is lacking in some spots, like as far as drama or,
Right.
or as far as professionalism. I don't know, because I think as far as from the outside looking in, it's pretty professional the way it comes across on flow.
Right.
But I mean, it could be more like the national dudes they interview a lot. They show interviews from the night, from the, not at night, but from the morning before or whatever, people working on their cars and stuff. But that costs, like, that takes money to have some guy in the pits and a dude, walk around the microphone, walk around the camera,
Right.
interviewing dudes. I mean, so it just, money makes the world go round. And I don't think we got
Right.
a lot of it here in California, just because of where we're at. We're in California. It's
Right.
expensive to live down here, dude. So,
Right.
yeah, that's just, I don't think it's a problem as far as like who's running it, or, I mean, I'm sure it could pay
Right.
more, but I mean, I'm sure, but like it doesn't pay, let's say it pays, but it still pays to start the main event. I think you still get, you get 300 and something bucks. So like you don't get nothing to show up
Right.
with your expensive race car. Um, but you don't get an exuberant amount of money, kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, the motors are a top motor, 50, 60,000 brand new. You got to spend 15 to 20 to rebuild it after 20 or 25 nights. So that's for, that's
Wow.
for a hitter motor. Some guys, get away with less. Like you don't have to have 900 horsepower motor. But still, when you rebuild it, you're rebuilding, replacing valves, valve springs, replacing all the bearings, pistons. It just depends on how many, rods, because they stretch and stuff. It's all, so yeah, it's, you get some money back. You get enough to probably put in your truck and get there and get back.
Right.
Uh, yeah, but I can't tell, like, I'm not complaining. It's just like, it's like, it's not enough money, but like, I don't know what to do to get them to get more people more money, because it all comes from sponsors. Like no one's pulling out of their pocket to pay other people
Right.
to come. So you got to make it appealing to sponsors and to showcase. So it's got to showcase well to the big corporations. And I just don't think that we have that
Right.
platform here, as far as, because the flow racing coverage isn't as on par as the national dudes, um,
Mm,
and then maybe our drama, because we don't have a bunch of super full-time dudes, or because like there's whatever 10 or 12 dudes that run full time, on the national thing, and it's like, oh man, those guys, they do a bunch of interviews all throughout the
right.
week, and show all the stuff, and so making it more personable. I do like the deal at
Right.
Paris, so I think I wish they did that at every track. Like if it,
Right.
I know Ventura is a little small for that, but push out on the track and let the fans come down to the track and meet us, or
Mm-hmm.
but Paris had been doing the cancer support thing, and they let the
Mm-hmm.
drivers go up and talk, and they get to collect the donations and stuff, and so that's cool too. I wish they did that at every track, even just that, like that'd be cool, because
Right.
it's all about the kids. Because if the kids want to go, the parents are like, oh, okay, like
Right.
the kids will be good, like we'll go. So that's what it
Right.
is. It's about getting the young people into it. So because just like drag racing, not like drag racing, but it's just if you're an older person, you grew up that way. So if you're an older dude, you're like, I love sprint cars. Like I've been going since I was a kid, like an ascot. Like you hear that a lot, but like you don't see, like there's not a lot of new youth in the class, or new youth like
Right.
that you see a lot around. So it's very far and few between. It's a lot like if you look around the pits, there's not a lot of kids. I mean, I'm not a kid.
Right.
I mean, but when I was a kid, there's not a lot of kids. It's a lot of old dudes standing around, talking about the good days, which is cool. But like, you got to make it interesting for the young generation too. So maybe that's something, because we're in like a technologically advanced, era.
That's
Deal.
right. Because the on track, I hate to call it a product, but that's basically the product that you guys are putting out has always been good. I've never been to, even though I've been to some tracks that that I wish were better, but you guys have always put on an absolutely banger of a show every single time. And so I don't think the racing is necessarily the issue. But what I think is, this day and age, we're in a, technology revolution, especially now with social media. Track promoters aren't really doing the best of a job of actually promoting. I mean, I understand why, because you have these tracks are, razor thin margins, right? They can't hire, specialized people. I would have to assume it's probably less than 5 people working at a track, not a lot of people. And so now hiring a social media person probably is not in the cards.
Yeah.
And, now with the track promoters, I think they're wearing like way too many hats and not actually doing what it says in their title.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're doing track prep, they're officiating, they're doing everything, concessions, making sure that the entire night goes smoothly. I don't think they really have time to actually promote. And I think the issue is just exposure, because I have actually, talked to some folks, because I'm from Southern California and I know people in Riverside, and they weren't even aware there was a racetrack in Paris.
Oh, wow.
And they're like, 20 minutes away. Right. And they had no idea. Right. So, and, me as being a, quote unquote influencer, right, is as a content creator, I'm trying to do my best to kind of get the word out there. But sometimes the tracks make it really difficult for me to do my thing, right, in terms of like not giving me access. And I mean, I get why, because of safety. We've had some unfortunate incidences, past couple of years. We had some photographers who unfortunately were in the wrong place in the wrong time. So I kind of get the worry about that. But sometimes it feels like it's needlessly too difficult. And really all we're trying to do is just trying to get the word out that, hey, here's a thing and this exists. I know with all the drivers and stuff, you guys are always been very accommodating and, very appreciative of, the things that I've done. So I've, thank you all for that. Every time I go to a racetrack, you guys have always, opened up your trailers and stuff and just, hey, whatever you need, a pat on the back, hey, those really awesome photos, whatever, it's always appreciated. So, but sometimes I think the track promoters kind of need to get with the digital age a little bit, to kind of help out with that.
Definitely, dude. Just because, like it's, everybody's on their phones nowadays, and so if you see something cool on the phone, like, dang, I might want to go see that in person, kind of thing. So, I agree.
Right.
So, but it's hard. It's hard to put across in a post, or even a short clip of like how exciting this racing is.
Right.
So it's almost like you got to come see it for yourself, but like the photos are definitely a part of that, like catching the car doing a wheelie and the wheels are turned. Like some average person, like, why is his wheels turned? Why is he doing a wheelie with the wheels turned? So even someone that has like, no clue about a car or something, like why the wheels are off the ground.
Right.
So I'll come check it out. So I agree. Like, and it's cool that you're getting into shooting this stuff just because, and you hadn't been around it. just to show it off because you have a different fan base, you could say. Um,
Right.
and so everybody's like, "Oh, what's that?" kind of thing. So even to go and watch it
Right.
on Flow, I mean, that brings interest. And then you're like, "Well, this isn't good no more. Like, let's go see it in person." Like, so I mean, even
Right.
the Flow thing is cool because that's a digital thing. I mean, and it's easier for someone to
Right.
get into as far as like they don't got to pay to get into the stands and pay the gas and stuff. They can pay
Right.
whatever I think the fee is for the year, and they get to watch all the
Mhm.
races. But at some point, someone's gonna get, I would, but I mean, I've been in it my whole life, but like, I
Right.
don't like watching it on Flow. I like to go. I like to see it. I like to smell the fuel.
Right.
I like to, feel the dirt on my
Hmm.
face at the end of the night, kind of thing. So,
Right.
and it's more in your face and it's more action packed in your face. But
Right.
it's hard to get that across from the camera way up top at the top of the stands. Like you don't feel the
Right.
speed. And then the GoPro
Right.
thing is also, it's cool, but you don't feel the speed on that either because it all looks super slow because
Hmm.
it's super smooth. Like the cars aren't like that. The cars are
Right.
rough and they're just mean to you.
Right.
They're just mean to you. So,
Right.
but yeah,
Right.
the digital thing for sure. I mean, but it's hard. It's just tough. It's just tough to get it across, to the average
Right.
person, the average family, the average guy. Like, hey, like this is happening. You're right. I mean, and that it does surprise me, but it doesn't surprise me that people in Riverside, which 20 minutes from the track, don't know because
Right.
I know they do some commercials and stuff on the radio, but ain't nobody listening to the radio no more. Everybody's got Spotify or
Right.
Pandora or Apple Music, and
Hmm.
um, so nobody's listening to commercials no more. I mean, it's like everybody wants to like just
Right.
listen to like what they want to listen. So it's hard to to break that barrier down of like because people
Right.
want to only look at what they want to look at, and so it's hard for the ads, to
Right.
put an ad out and stuff. So, but I agree, like to update what we're doing. I mean, the PR guy for
Right.
CRA, he tries. I mean, he tries his butt off, but it's only to the people that follow the page or his page, and it's I don't know
Hmm.
how many like how much reach it gets, but um, I'm
Right.
sure. But again, it costs money to get it
Right.
to reach more people. So it all
Right.
comes back to that, and I'm pretty sure he does all that stuff for free or close to nothing. So
Hmm.
he's got a day job too. So
Right.
even the guys running the series of PR and all the ladies that doing the hand scoring and stuff like everybody's got a day job,
Hmm.
so they're just doing it out of pure passion
Right.
for this sport, which
Right.
is super sick. But it's hard to have that to make someone else have that passion who has no clue about it.
Right.
But yeah, to bring it to the digital age would be it. I mean, short clips on Instagram and stuff. I mean, I love that stuff.
Right.
But they don't really do that stuff no more. I mean, the national dudes do it a little bit, and they do like their
Mm.
posts and stuff. But it's, even on their posts, it's hard to see like the action that this stuff brings. I mean, it's
Right.
in your face, it's loud, it's dirty. I mean, it's open wheels. I mean, and the crashes are big. You
Right.
don't like to see crashes, but fans do. They like to see something from out of the
Right.
ordinary. There's slide jobs happen to people. I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, but I
Right.
just don't. It's hard. It's hard to get across to the average dude. Like you can't see that through the phone. You can't see that
Right.
through. You can't see that through a radio ad or nothing. So I agree. Someone's going to figure it out. um,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, hopefully somebody. But one thing I do notice, at least nowadays, is a lot of drivers themselves are kind of taking upon themselves, and just starting like their own YouTube channels. Timez, has his own YouTube channels. A lot of dirt racers are now starting to go that route because, for one, exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you're now showing yourself in front of an audience that you normally wouldn't have because YouTube is now primarily I can't remember, just a ridiculous amount of billions of views
Mm.
a day,
Oh, really?
right?
Okay.
So so YouTube is now becoming a thing, and then you have Hunt to the Front, the dirt late models and stuff. So YouTube's now becoming a thing. So now starting to see drivers starting to embrace that and just kind of just doing it on their own. And also, if you build a big enough audience, then you start monetizing, and now you have a new revenue stream, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you don't have to rely on sponsors as much. You can start creating digital content, and YouTube could probably, help pay some of the bills. So, help with selling merch and stuff like that. So it's It's slowly evolving, but I'm kind of glad to see that, at least some people are starting to, dip their toes in the YouTube. I'm trying to do the same thing, starting with, this conversation right here.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But I know we're kind of, we're running long, but I do have one, you know, um, I guess topic that I kind of want to go over, especially as a, photographer, because most of the people are following me are photographers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always, when it comes to photography, there's always, one of the things I always think about is, etiquette and stuff and making sure we're doing it super safe and being professionals and stuff like that. So obviously there's, when you're going to a racetrack, there's certain things that, we want to be aware of, like, don't go into anybody's trailer unless you're invited. Don't step out in front of a car. Don't touch anything you're not supposed to, right? Obviously, some of the basic stuff. But yesterday, I was kind of reminded of something that I didn't really kind of think about until, just yesterday. So growing up in the 80s and 90s, I watched a lot of NHRA drag racing.
Mm-hmm.
Because growing up in Southern California, we go to Pomona a lot as a family, watch plenty of races. And I remember, especially probably maybe since you probably have some experience with this, especially with like the door slammer categories like pro stock and stuff, they're very secretive. Like once they have some type of advantage, they don't want anybody to know about it, right? I remember in the 80s, Bob Glidden had a bad crash at Englishtown, New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
where did his run, shut off, popped the parachutes. They wrapped around the wheelie bars, and he made a hard left into the wall and like rolled like 15 times. It completely junked the car. It was like horrific at the time watching it. First thing he did when he jumped out of the car was he took his fire suit off and he put it over the manifold because he didn't want anybody to see it. Right? Like we're talking like they took that stuff seriously. Obviously, we want to be, as content creators and stuff, we kind of want to be cognizant that there's probably some things that maybe we don't want to point our camera lens at. Is there in sprint car racing, do you see any of that really? Because I don't really know, because it seems like a lot of the things you do are kind of off the shelf parts. You're buying complete motors, you're buying complete chassis and stuff, but is there anything that you can think of in a pit area where maybe you should probably not pay attention to that? What do you think?
I mean, maybe if you put two guys stagger tapes, like if you take a picture of the guy measuring the stagger tape, like on the right rear, and then you walk over and take a picture of like the number, maybe that. You could take pictures of pretty much anything. I mean, we like to mess around. We were in Ventura a couple of times. We take the wheels off, just let it sit on the jack, and then we put white towels over the wheel spacers just to mess around, because like that's part of the setup. Because back in the day,
Right.
when we ran trophy carts, my dad had three black snap on leather covers like for the back of the truck, so you could hide the gearing and like kind of the clutch combo you were running.
Right.
So that was like that, like the white towel effect, but nothing on a sprint car other than basically the stagger. Because pretty much like the setup is like all on the torsion bars, like what you have turns in, and you really can't tell from a picture from that, and you can't tell like what shock valving they have, how many turns they got out on the rebound or the compression. That's because that's pretty much all that runs like drives the car forward. You can't tell the birdcage timing. That's part of the setup. But stagger is like the only thing. Like if a guy's measuring stagger, I mean, you could take a picture of him like far away, whatever. But like if you had the lens like right over the tape,
Right.
I mean, even that. I mean, some guys run. It really doesn't matter because some guys run 12 inches or 13 inches, or some guys run 8.
Right.
So that's all.
Right.
There's really nothing on a sprint car just because it's so. I mean, like the manifold thing, we're making so much power to, we're never hooking that stuff up with no wing. I mean, it's constantly, it's just a free spin, not a free spin. It's spinning the whole time. I mean, so there's nothing secret about a sprint car. I mean, it's all about, the base setup, and then about, a couple little things here and there, your shock package, and then who's driving the thing. I mean, You know,
Right.
how long they want to hold it into the corner and how good the car turns. I mean, pretty much. It's all on track.
Right.
Like there's nothing super trick. Because the drag racing thing, it's really all that. Like, you could put any monkey in the seat and go A to B.
Mm. Right.
Realistically, especially with like the pro stock stuff. I mean, not especially,
Right.
but the newer stuff like that. My brothers do the door slammer with the radial, small tire stuff like that's more
Mm.
of a driver's deal, just because the track, tire's so small,
Right.
overpowered for the tire. Um, but yeah, there's nothing crazy on a sprint car.
Okay.
It's not like a grudge scene like the radio guys. I mean, they're trying to get every ounce of horsepower out the thing.
Right.
But even then, I mean, just take a picture, dog. I mean, just show it all because maybe it might
Right.
trigger someone like, hey, that's pretty cool. Like I want to check that out in person. So
Right.
yeah, I'd say take a picture of it all, dude. All the arguments in the trailers, all
Right.
the crew guys arguing, take pictures of that stuff. Just because people want to see that stuff. No one ever like I don't ever see that. Like
Right.
I hear people. I mean, even we do in the pits, like arguing. I want to see some pictures. How stupid we look. I mean,
Right.
um,
Right.
so I mean, but
Yeah. And
yeah,
yeah, so that's definitely going to be my goal this year is to get more, photos from, the pit area because, I'm starting to, I want to be more of a storyteller than just taking a cool picture
mm-hmm.
just for the sake of taking a cool picture and, having some, a little more emotion and stuff. I'm starting to do more portraits and do a little more than just the on track, stuff. The on track stuff's cool, but
Yeah.
I just think the more I do it, the more it's like the pit area is actually the most interesting part for me.
Yeah.
It's starting to become
Yeah.
the most interesting part.
Yeah. There's more people. It's a lot of attitudes, a lot of personalities.
Right.
And to be able to capture that is cool. I mean, there's not a lot of dudes that take pictures in the pits. I mean, they take pictures of the cars, the tail tanks
Right.
and stuff, and it's oh yeah, cool. Like that guy showed up. But I mean, people want to see people. That's why people watch people
Right.
on TV,
Right.
and they want to get to know everybody's
Right.
faces, and so that's like the
Right.
storytelling of the series needs to be elevated to bring more people.
Right.
So I mean, on this scale, people want to see people.
Right.
So if you can bring that
Right.
to the series, I mean that's sick. So yeah, that's gonna be
Right.
cool. I'm excited for it.
Right. But all right, cool. Well, do have a couple of lightning round questions.
Okay.
Not quite yes or no, but I'm just kind of curious on your on some of your answers. So, which track has the best concessions?
Concessions. I think Paris that I've been to concessions. They used to have killer tacos. I think they still do killer tacos in the infield because they have infield concessions. Then Ventura's pretty good too. The chicken outside is pretty. The chicken is pretty good.
What is your favorite racetrack to race at?
Placement wise, Ventura, just because it's on the beach, dude. I mean, the weather's always nice.
Right.
The nighttime's always nice, so, but as far as action, Paris, I've raced there a ton. I love it. Or, and then my new favorite, I guess, would be Casa Grande for the 360 stuff. I ran a couple times over there and I liked it. It's like Talladega, like when you're wheel packing, like the car's all laid over. I've never been on a track with so much bank.
Oh,
yeah, it's pretty cool. I've never ran 360 wide open in my life, and that's the track that I've done it at. I'm like, oh man, and I still wanted to go faster. I'm like, oh man, like this isn't fast enough. So I'm bummed.
Right.
I'm not going to get to run the 410 there, but those guys are going to have some fun over there. Like that track's really, it grew on me.
Shoot, I think you just might have convinced me to, because that's the next race is at Casa Grande.
Yeah.
So I might have to at least make it for one of the nights.
Yeah, dude. No, it's
right. You just cost me some money.
Yeah, sorry, dude. Sorry, it's sick, dude. I mean, it's hard to view because like the track's so offset from the stands. But if you can get on the infield,
right.
Basically, my dad and my brothers are like, it's like a dyno session, dude, for 30 laps. I mean, for the 360s, it's just like hammer down. Everybody's screaming the motor because it's bigger than Paris, but it's like more of a circle. And then the bank is just, but just tricky. There's no fence, so like it doesn't really build a big curb. So you fall off, and so like that's part of the racing too. You kind of fall off the backstretch or fall off a corner. So, but yeah, that track was my newer favorite, but Paris, like always, is going to be my number one just because of where it's at.
Right.
And the people that race there and people that won there is just so. Even to be on the list of people that have won any type of any class there is super cool. So, yeah,
Right.
that's definitely the favorite track, like for on track stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. For if you're going to do a Mount Rushmore as sprint car drivers, who would be your 4 that you put on it?
We're doing non-wing dudes.
Non-wing or wing, whoever.
Um,
It's your 4.
I'm gonna do just straight non-wing dudes. It's gonna be Corey Cruzman, Damien. 10-time. Like that's the like he's Mr.
Yep.
That's Mr. CRA, and then I'm just gonna do like I don't know, dude. I don't know who else. Who's the man? Mike Spencer was the man. Out here, Mike Spencer was the man a long time before Damien was, and then a new guy. For the national dudes, I'm gonna have to put Grant. I just like Grant, dude.
Yep.
Grant's and then I'll add a quick 5th, T-Miss, because I just like his.
Yep.
I like the YouTube deal, and he's just always hammered down.
I love his personality.
Yeah,
he's
dude.
such a. He would be the he'd be one guy I want to have a beer with. Like I don't drink, but I'll have a beer with him.
Oh, that's a
he
lie.
just seems to be just
you
such a down to earth.
No, yeah, he's definitely.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Thanks to your brother.
Yeah. So we're just trying to kick it. But no, yeah. Dude,
so what's
definitely one of the cool cats for sure.
Right. So what's next for you? Because obviously, as we kind of discussed earlier, you sold off all your equipment, which I'm still bummed about that. So what are your plans what does your future look like?
As of right now, so I sold all my stuff to basically come up with a down payment to buy a house and start a family. I've raced sprint cars 10 years, so it's about time I not grow up, but just use that as a stepping stone. But I'd love to drive for somebody. I love to crew on somebody's. I'd like to get paid too, but I drive for free, but I crew for money. Just because I've learned some stuff over the years to get people comfortable and myself and a couple other guys. So, but yeah, that's like I'd like to get back into it eventually. But as of right now, in the near future, unless someone comes up, with some cash or to pay me to go to the track or comes up with a ride, for free. I jump in a seat right now. I still kept my carbon seat. Kept my nameplate just in case someone wants to throw something around. But yeah, sold everything, dude. Everything's gone. So next is a house and then a family, and then I'm going racing with my brothers a lot. We're trying to go out of state with the radial cars this year, so I'm kind of excited about that because I like to work on their stuff. I like to be a part of the team. But just I'm gonna miss the sprint car deal for sure. I don't know. I'm gonna be back. I just don't know when. But as of right now, it ain't soon. So.
Right. Well, we hope to see you back at some point. It's always good when we get to see you at the racetrack because, it's, it always. I was a little bit bummed out because. You were one of like the first people that I kind of gotten to know. And actually I kind of met you through Jason Our Photos, I think. Actually, I don't even remember how we met. But, when I first started like asking, hey, can I put some GoPros on some cars just to kind of, have some fun with it? And, you immediately volunteered and we've had a good time since. So, so I'm going to miss that. But yeah, so hopefully we'll at least get to see you at some racetracks as a spectator.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll be around, dude. Especially because Paris is so close to me.
Right.
I'll definitely come. I'll definitely come hang out and watch. I like to talk. I know you when I seen you at Paris or at the ovals, you're like, dude, like I've never heard you talk so much. And I'm like, yeah, because I took the racing pretty serious. Like I really didn't talk a bunch when I was racing, but I love to talk, as you can see. I like to talk about it. I'm about it, dude. I did that for so long, and that was my passion. Like that's still my passion. So I'll be around if and but I'd like to get paid to come and help some guys out. I mean, I can get a couple
Right.
dudes faster, quick kind of
Right.
thing. Not the top dudes, like they got their stuff figured out, but I'd like to help a couple
Right.
dudes, from the back of the pack, maybe step up their game a little bit. But it costs money. Money makes the world go around and stuff.
Right.
But then I'm probably gonna come to Paris. We might shoot up to Tulare or something, watch some wing stuff. I did that a couple races last year. I like that the wing show up there at Tulare because that Tulare is a cool track. The
Right.
wing show up there is good. I mean, I'm not a wing fan. I'll pick non-wing over
Mm.
wing. But the wing show up there was good. I think we went and watched the last night Trophy Cup, and that was sick.
Mm.
Just
Right.
the wings at Tulare are cool.
Right.
But yeah, dude. I mean, I'll be around. I'll be around. So,
Okay.
but I appreciate you putting your stuff on
So
my
if any,
bar and all that. So, it got.
yeah.
I mean, it was another perspective because I was always actually back to the superstition thing. I didn't run cameras. If I ran a camera, I did terrible.
Mm.
And I forgot about that. So when you put the GoPro in my car, I was like, I don't know, dude. And then we got, the shock tower knocked off and stuff. And I'm like, oh,
Mm.
it's Chris's camera for sure.
So, if anybody's looking for a driver, how can they reach you?
Instagram or Facebook. I answer all my DMs from them. So Instagram is at
Okay.
TW52, and then Trent Williams on Facebook. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. So it's all hooked up to my phone and stuff. So, if you're looking for a top 10 dude and you want to go run, got some extra bucks to go throw around. I mean, I'll drive anything.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to put your contact info down in the description. So if anyone's looking for a driver, Trent is your man. So, but this was awesome. So thank you so much for taking the time out to, talk with me about sprint cars. And I learned a lot more than I would have as, being just a casual fan. So definitely appreciate it. So yeah, with that, then, we'll chat later.
Cool. All right, man. Thank you.